Hi everyone, welcome to my channel dedicated to learning Microsoft Fabric. My name is Fikrat. In one of the previous videos, we have talked about for each activity that can be used to build iterative logic within your data integration pipelines. Today we are going to explore another alternative for building iterative logic. So that's until activity. So you may remember from previous discussions that for each activity requires item collection, and for each item within that collection, it will perform certain tasks. What's different with until activity is that it requires a validation expression, and it will run its child objects or child tasks until that expression becomes validated to true. So it will run, so in other words, it will run its internal tasks while its condition is still false, and it will terminate as soon as the expression validates to true. So today I'm going to show the basic functionality of until activity, and then I'll explain how it can be used to address certain data integration challenges. Besides this, I'm also going to explain another activity which often is used in pair with until or iteration activities. So that's wait activity. Wait activity is very simple. It's there to just introduce certain delay in your pipeline. Okay, so let me first start with adding until activity to my newly created pipeline. I'll move to activities and add and look for until activity. Before I proceed, I need a variable that can be used for validating my expression. So I'm gonna select my pipeline canvas and move to variables and add variable. I'll select its data type to integer and I'll assign 0 as initial value. Now I'll select my until activity and open settings, and from here, this is the only main setting for this activity. So I'm going to open expression builder. And I need to build validation expression here. So for this, I'll start with building expressions that will validate a variable that I just created equal to that variable to number 1. So I'll move to functions and I'll open logical functions and I'll select equals to start my expression. And from here, I need to provide 2 arguments. My first argument is going to be variable that I created. So I'll open variables. I'll select my variable here. And as a second argument, I'm going to say equals to 1. So I hit OK. And I'll need add to one activity here. So right now, it's going to be just dummy activity. So I'm going to use set variable again here. And here, I'm going to select same variable and assign 0 to this variable. So basically, this activity doesn't do anything. It doesn't change condition of my variable. and because it doesn't change it, it's my expression should never validate to true. So let me save and run this. Okay, so as you can see, my pipeline is still in progress, but I have many instances of this child task running, and this is going to be never-ending loop. Um, Now I'm going to cancel this. And now I'm going to change this set variable setting so that it would change my value to from 0 to 1. I'm going to run my pipeline again. Okay, as you can see, my pipeline, my child object within this activity run only once, and that's because my set variable has changed my variable and made sure that my expression um, validates to true. Okay, now we can add wait condition here. Before I do that, I'll reverse my change to assign variable and change to 0 so that I could see multiple instances. And now we can add wait activity. Yeah, again, wait activity is just to introduce some delay because in many cases it's beneficial to wait before you repeat certain actions within your iteration. I'll switch to settings and change my wait time to 5 seconds. I'll run my pipeline again. Now, if I expand this history, execution history, now you can see that um, each my iteration waits for 5 seconds before continuing execution. Now that we know how until and wait activities work, I'm going to demonstrate how these activities can be used to address real-life data integration challenges. So I'm going to build a pipeline which will incrementally read from SQL table, and it will every time it will read it based on the last remembered watermark value. So I've got sales order header table that's part of Adventure Work database, and let me just quickly show the content. So you can see that most all the order dates are assigned to June 2008. So if I run this filter, if I add this filter, it will not produce anything. And I also created watermarks table with table name and the watermarks value. And here I'm gonna insert, and I have inserted a row for sales order header watermark. So if I just query this table, it has only a single value. Now let's go ahead and create a logic to read from this watermarks table first. So this value will be used in further down in the pipeline. Let me add few variables here. So I'll first add variable for my watermark. And I'll also need row count variable. I'll assign integer data type. Now let's open until activities. Okay, so let me first add lookup activity to read my watermark table. So I'll use my SQL connection. And from here, I can use watermark table. I can select watermark table. And do a quick check. Okay, the table is good. And the column is called watermark value. Now let's add set variable activity to assign the variable output from this to variable. I'll first assign this to watermark variable, and I will select output from my lookup, the first lookup. So before I do that, let me just rename this. Okay, now I can open expression builder, and I'll use watermark tables. Lookups output from here, and I'll add column name, which was watermark value. Now I can add another lookup to read my row count from my source table. I'm going to select same connection, and I'll select query option, and then I'll bring my query here. In dynamic content. But instead of hard coding dates, I'm going to read dates, so last watermark value from variable. So I'll start building expression. So I'll move to functions, and under functions, I'll use concatenation function. Under strings, concat. So, and I will say my first string, my first argument is going to be like this. I'll end my string here. Let me remove this. And I'll add variable as a second argument. Now, because this is string value, I need to wrap it in single quote. So I'm going to add double quote here, and I'm going to add extra double quote here. Now I'll confirm. Now I can use my existing set variable to read output from this lookup. Let me first rename this. And I will link this to activities. I will call this row count. I'll select my row count variable, and just like with other set variable activity, I'm gonna use output from previous lookup. So this is going to be sales order row count, and I'm gonna use this expression. And I'll need to add field here, column name field here. It's gonna be a row count. Now, let me get back to my main design canvas, and I'll change my until activities expression. So here I'm going to validate if the value, so row count value variable is greater than 0. So I'm going to remove all this expression, and we'll start building new expression by navigating to functions, and from here I'm going to use logical functions, and I will choose greater function. So let's add the first argument. The first argument is going to be row count variable. So I'll open variables, I'll select row count variable, and my second argument is going to be 0. So basically this expression validates whether or not this row count variable is greater than 0. Okay, now I can add extra copy activity, which will copy data if we see new data within my sales order, sales header table. Let me add copy activity, and this will start after my until activity. I'm going to select my SQL connection. And here I will select query option, and I'll add this function. Actually, I'm going to use the expressions that I already built for other lookup, for my lookup activity. So move here, I'll use this, and I'll just tweak it so that will be easier. And I'm going just to tweak this part so that it will return all the rows for all the sales orders which has order date greater than a certain watermark value. So remaining part is configuring of destination. So I'm going to use Lakehouse, and I will say my destination table is going to be sales order. header, sales order header. Okay, so let me save and then run this pipeline. Now let's go ahead and change our data and to ensure that we have some fresh data. So I'm going to move here and run this update statement, which will update my order dates to ensure that there are some rows coming after June 2008. But before I run this, I will need to run other um, two statements. So because I know that we have check constraint on this table. So let me switch to adventure work, and I'm going to run this two statements first. And finally, I run my sales. So I'll change my order date. So now we should have 20 rows with more recent data. So let me go back to my pipeline and see how it performs. So as soon as I change my data, control has passed to my next activity, and this is going to copy data to my destination table. That concludes today's session dedicated to until and wait activities. And I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.